The rain falling over Seoul that night felt endless. Cold water slid down the giant glass windows of the Han mansion, while servants moved quietly through the halls like frightened shadows. Nobody raised their voice inside that house. Nobody laughed too loudly. Nobody stayed in the corridors after midnight. Because Kang Min-jae was home. At the far end of the hallway, Rachel stood holding a silver tray with both hands while her heartbeat pounded violently inside her chest. One of the senior housekeepers had warned her earlier that evening. Never look directly into his eyes unless he speaks to you first. At the time, Rachel thought the warning sounded ridiculous. Now she understood. Because the man slowly walking toward her looked less like a businessman and more like someone carved out of danger itself. Tall, sharp black suit, dark eyes colder than winter. The kind of face magazines called handsome, while enemies probably called terrifying. Two armed men followed behind him silently. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. And somehow, despite the fear surrounding him, Min-jae looked exhausted more than anything else. As he approached, Rachel lowered her gaze respectfully. But just as he passed her, one glass cup slipped slightly on the tray. The tiny sound echoed loudly through the silent hallway. The guards immediately tensed. Rachel froze. "Oh my God, I'm sorry." Min-jae stopped walking. Slowly, he turned toward her. For a moment, the entire mansion seemed to stop moving. Rachel expected yelling, or anger, or punishment. Instead, Min-jae simply looked at her for 3 long seconds before speaking in a calm voice. "You're new." "Yes, sir." "Learn quickly." Then he walked away. And somehow, that was even scarier. What Rachel didn't know was that Kang Min-jae almost never noticed the staff working in his mansion. But he noticed her immediately. If you love Korean billionaire romance and mafia love stories like this, subscribe now to @Physial_Threads and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. 3 months earlier, Rachel had been sleeping inside a tiny rented room above a noisy restaurant in Seoul. The apartment barely had heat. The ceiling leaked whenever it rained. And every night, she counted coins carefully before deciding whether she could afford dinner the next day. Life had become survival. After losing her mother years earlier, Rachel carried responsibilities heavier than most people her age could imagine. She worked constantly, took every job she could find, and ignored her own exhaustion because stopping meant falling apart. But Korea had not been kind to her. Some employers underpaid her because they assumed she had no one to defend her. Others treated her like she was invisible. She learned quickly that surviving alone in a foreign country required strength nobody could see from the outside. Still, despite everything, Rachel remained kind. That was what made her different. Even after difficult days, she smiled at elderly strangers on buses. She shared food whenever coworkers forgot lunch. She comforted people while silently carrying her own pain. And maybe that was why fate eventually led her to the Han mansion. The salary offered there was far better than any job she'd ever had before. But the rumors frightened her. People whispered things. Dangerous things. The owner isn't just a businessman. They say politicians answer to him. My cousin worked there once. She quit after hearing gunshots in the middle of the night. They call him the Devil of Seoul. Rachel almost refused the position. But desperation makes people brave. Or foolish. Sometimes both. That first week inside the mansion felt unreal. The estate was enormous. Marble floors reflected giant chandeliers hanging from impossibly high ceilings. Expensive artwork lined the walls. Security guards stood outside nearly every entrance. Everything looked beautiful, but none of it felt warm. The mansion felt like a luxurious prison ruled by silence. And at the center of it all stood Kang Min-jae. He was 34 years old, CEO of Han Holdings, feared mafia leader, and one of the richest men in Korea. Publicly, people knew him as a ruthless business genius. Privately, his name terrified entire criminal organizations. Nobody crossed Min-jae twice. The first time Rachel saw him closely was during breakfast service. The dining room alone was larger than her old apartment building. Min-jae sat at the head of the table reading documents while several executives nervously explained financial reports. He barely reacted emotionally. No smiles. No wasted words. No visible weakness. "Remove Director Choi from the project," he said calmly. One executive swallowed hard. "Sir, removing him now could damage the partnership." Min-jae finally looked up, then let it collapse. Silence. Absolute silence. The meeting ended minutes later. And as the executives hurried out nervously, Rachel realized something terrifying. The most dangerous thing about Kang Min-jae was not anger. It was calmness. But what she didn't know was that Min Jae noticed her presence every morning after that. At first, it irritated him. She moved differently from the others. Most employees around him acted terrified constantly. Rachel respected him, but she wasn't consumed by fear. She spoke gently to older workers. She helped the kitchen staff without being asked. Sometimes he caught her humming quietly while cleaning. Tiny things. Unimportant things. Yet somehow, those details stayed in his mind. And Min Jae hated that. Because attachment was dangerous. Years ago, he had learned that lesson brutally. Back then, Min Jae was not yet the feared man Seoul knew today. He was ambitious, ruthless, but still emotionally capable of love. He trusted people once. Especially a woman named Yura. She had been beautiful, intelligent, charming, and secretly working with Min Jae's enemies the entire time. Her betrayal led to an ambush that killed Min Jae's younger brother. That night changed him forever. Since then, Min Jae buried every soft emotion beneath violence, business, and control. Love made people weak. Trust got people killed. And weakness was unacceptable in his world. Which was exactly why Rachel became a problem. One evening, Rachel stayed late organizing books inside the mansion library when the lights suddenly went out. The storm outside intensified violently. Thunder shook the windows. She sighed softly. Perfect timing. As she searched for candles, footsteps echoed behind her. Rachel turned suddenly. Min Jae stood near the doorway wearing a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled slightly upward. He looked surprised to see someone there. You're still awake. I was finishing inventory. Another thunder strike darkened the room briefly. Then something unexpected happened. The lights failed completely. The entire mansion plunged into darkness. Rachel jumped slightly. Min Jae noticed immediately. You're afraid of storms? No, she lied quickly. Another thunder crack exploded outside. She flinched again. For the first time since meeting her. Min Jae almost smiled. Almost. Instead, he walked toward a cabinet, retrieved a flashlight, and handed it to her. Go to your room. Rachel blinked. You're not angry I stayed late. You worked too much. The words surprised both of them. Especially him. Min Jae turned immediately and left before she could respond. But that night, lying awake in her room, Rachel realized something confusing. Beneath all that coldness, there were moments when Kang Min Jae almost seemed human. Meanwhile, Min Jae sat alone inside his office, unable to focus on work. Because for the first time in years, someone's presence inside his home felt comforting instead of exhausting. And he didn't know what to do with that feeling. Days slowly turned into months. The strange tension between them deepened quietly. Not openly. Not romantically. Just small moments building on top of each other. Rachel noticed Min Jae never ate properly whenever stressed. Sometimes expensive meals returned untouched from his office. So one evening, without asking permission, she prepared homemade soup instead. When his assistant brought it inside, Min Jae frowned. What is this? The new maid made it herself. I didn't ask for food. She said you haven't eaten all day. Min Jae stared at the bowl silently, then dismissed everyone. That night, he finished the entire meal alone. Meanwhile, Rachel slowly learned more about the man everyone feared. He secretly paid hospital bills for injured staff members. He personally visited loyal employees' families after accidents. He funded orphanages anonymously through shell companies. But nobody knew. Because Min Jae never wanted gratitude. Only control. One night, Rachel accidentally discovered another side of him entirely. She had been carrying laundry upstairs when she noticed blood drops near Min Jae's office door. Fear tightened inside her chest. Carefully, she pushed the door open slightly. And froze. Min Jae sat shirtless on a couch while a doctor stitched a deep wound near his ribs. Two armed guards stood nearby. The atmosphere turned deadly the moment they saw her. She saw too much, one guard muttered. Rachel immediately stepped back. I'm sorry, but Min Jae raised one hand calmly. The room fell silent. His dark eyes met hers. Then he spoke quietly. Come here. Every instinct told her to refuse. But somehow, she walked forward anyway. The doctor sighed. The wound reopened because you refused to rest. I'm fine. You lost too much blood. Rachel looked at the injury carefully. And before thinking properly, she spoke softly. You should listen to him. The guards looked horrified. Nobody spoke to Min Jae casually. But instead of reacting angrily, Min Jae stared at her strangely, as if he couldn't understand why she sounded genuinely worried. After a long silence, he finally asked, Why are you not afraid of me? Rachel hesitated, then answered honestly, I think You're more lonely than dangerous." The room became completely still. Even the doctor looked shocked, because nobody had ever spoken to Kang Min-jae that way before. And for some reason, those words affected him more than bullets ever could. But what happens next changes everything. The following week, a new man began visiting the mansion frequently. His name was Daniel Lee. Unlike Min-jae, Daniel entered rooms smiling easily. He joked with staff members, greeted employees warmly, and treated people like human beings instead of workers. Rachel noticed immediately. "You're the famous new maid everyone likes," Daniel teased one afternoon while signing documents in the kitchen. Rachel laughed awkwardly. "I don't think anyone calls me famous." "You'd be surprised." Daniel was handsome in a softer way than Min-jae. Friendly eyes, relaxed personality, easy conversation. Being around him felt comfortable, safe. And after months of emotional confusion around Min-jae, comfort became dangerous. Meanwhile, upstairs in his office, Min-jae watched security footage silently. Specifically footage showing Daniel making Rachel laugh. His jaw tightened slightly. An uncomfortable feeling settled inside his chest. Jealousy. But Min-jae refused to call it that. Instead, he convinced himself Daniel was simply becoming too familiar with mansion staff. Nothing more. Still, he kept watching. One rainy evening, Rachel finished shopping for the mansion long after sunset. As she stood outside a convenience store struggling with heavy bags, rain suddenly poured heavily across the street. She sighed. Then a car stopped beside her. The window lowered slowly. Daniel smiled. "You'll drown standing there." "I'm fine." "You're clearly not fine." He stepped out holding an umbrella before taking some bags gently from her hands. "Come on. I'll walk you home." Rachel hesitated, but eventually nodded. And unfortunately for everyone involved, Kang Min-jae saw everything. His black car had stopped across the street moments earlier. At first, he intended to ignore them. Then he saw Daniel smiling down at her. Then he saw Rachel smiling back. Something dark twisted violently inside him. By the time Rachel returned to the mansion later that night, the atmosphere already felt wrong. The guards looked tense, the staff unusually quiet, and Min-jae was waiting inside the main hallway. He stood near the staircase with one hand inside his pocket, expression unreadable. Rachel immediately bowed respectfully. "I'm sorry for returning late." Min-jae's eyes moved toward the umbrella still in her hands. "Who walked you home?" The question sounded calm. Then Min-jae stepped closer slowly. "You're becoming close." Rachel frowned slightly. "He's just kind." Something dangerous flashed across Min-jae's face briefly. Kindness always has intentions. The comment irritated her unexpectedly. "Not everyone manipulates people." His expression hardened. "And what exactly do you know about people like me?" The tension between them became suffocating. Rachel looked hurt. "I didn't mean." "Stay focused on your responsibilities." The coldness in his voice shattered something inside her. Because deep down, she finally realized something painful. No matter how many soft moments existed between them, Min-jae still kept her beneath him, still treated her like someone who needed boundaries, like someone impossible to love openly. That night, Rachel cried quietly inside her room. And downstairs, Kang Min-jae poured himself whiskey, knowing perfectly well he had just pushed away the one person capable of making him feel human again. But pride is a cruel thing. And unfortunately, the worst was still coming. The next morning, the Han mansion felt painfully quiet. Not the usual silence created by fear. This silence felt heavier, awkward, broken. Rachel moved through the kitchen without speaking much to anyone while the older staff exchanged worried glances. Usually, she greeted everyone warmly every morning. Usually, her soft laughter filled empty spaces inside the mansion. But today she looked emotionally exhausted. And upstairs inside his office, Kang Min-jae noticed immediately. He noticed she avoided looking toward him during breakfast service. He noticed she left the room quickly whenever he entered. He noticed she no longer stayed late organizing his office. Tiny changes. But somehow those tiny changes disturbed him more than violent threats from rival gangs ever could. One of his executives nervously continued speaking during a meeting. The Busan shipment issue should be resolved within 2 days. Wrong. The room froze. Min-jae's cold gaze remained fixed on the documents in front of him. The timeline says 4 days. The executive swallowed hard. Yes, sir. Normally Min-jae caught mistakes instantly. But today, his attention wasn't truly on business. Because downstairs, Rachel was laughing softly at something Daniel said near the garden entrance. And for some reason, Hearing another man make her smile felt unbearable. What Min Jae didn't understand was that jealousy becomes dangerous when combined with emotional repression, especially for men like him. Meanwhile, Rachel spent the entire day trying to convince herself she no longer cared about Min Jae's opinion. But it wasn't working, because despite his coldness, despite the emotional distance, a part of her still searched for him constantly, still noticed the sound of his footsteps, still paid attention whenever his mood changed. And that frustrated her deeply. Late that evening, Daniel found her sitting alone near the mansion greenhouse while rain tapped gently against the glass roof overhead. "You look sad," he said softly. "I'm tired." "No," Daniel replied carefully. "You look hurt." Rachel forced a smile. "I'll survive." Daniel sat beside her quietly. Unlike Min Jae, he never pressured silence into conversations. He allowed emotions space to breathe. "That man," Daniel began slowly. "He affects you a lot." Rachel looked away immediately. "It's complicated." "I figured." Another silence settled between them. Then Daniel sighed quietly. "You know what the problem is?" Rachel frowned slightly. "You keep waiting for him to say things he may never say." Those words landed painfully hard. Because deep down, she knew he was right. Meanwhile, danger was already approaching. 2 nights later, Min Jae attended a private meeting inside one of Han Group's underground warehouses near the river district. The atmosphere felt wrong immediately. Too quiet. Too empty. And Min Jae trusted instincts more than promises. "Everyone out," he ordered calmly. His men reacted instantly. But before they could move, gunshots exploded violently across the warehouse. Chaos erupted. Bullets tore through crates while armed men stormed the building from every entrance. Min Jae moved fast, shoving one injured guard behind cover before firing back coldly. The attack was organized. Precise. Someone had leaked his location. And as the violent confrontation intensified, one terrifying realization settled inside Min Jae's mind. There was a traitor close to him. Very close. By the time the shooting stopped, several men were injured. One was dead, and Min Jae stood silently in the middle of the destroyed warehouse with blood dripping slowly from a wound near his shoulder. His expression looked emotionless, but everyone around him knew what that silence meant. War was coming. Back at the mansion, Rachel waited anxiously after hearing rumors about the attack. Nobody told staff details directly, but fear spread quickly through the estate. Then finally, the front doors opened. Min Jae entered surrounded by guards. Blood stained his black coat. Rachel's heart nearly stopped. Without thinking, she rushed forward. "You're hurt." Min Jae looked startled by the panic in her voice. "I'm fine." "You're bleeding." One of the guards immediately interrupted. "Miss Rachel, please step back." But Min Jae raised one hand calmly. The guard fell silent instantly. For several long seconds, Min Jae simply stared at her worried expression. And something inside him softened dangerously. Because after all the coldness he showed her, she still cared. That realization terrified him. So naturally, he ruined the moment. "I said I'm fine." The sharpness in his voice made her step back immediately. Hurt flashed across her face before she lowered her eyes. "Sorry." Min Jae instantly regretted it. But by then, she was already walking away. And once again, his fear of vulnerability destroyed something precious. Days passed. The investigation into the betrayal intensified. Phones were monitored. Executives interrogated. Security doubled around the mansion. Min Jae trusted nobody anymore. Not even himself. Then Daniel made things worse without realizing it. One evening, Min Jae walked into the garden unexpectedly and found Daniel placing his jacket gently around Rachel's shoulders while they talked quietly beneath the cold evening wind. Rage hit him instantly. Not explosive rage. The dangerous, quiet kind. Daniel noticed him first. Chairman Kong. Rachel turned quickly. Min Jae's eyes moved slowly toward the jacket around her shoulders. Then toward Daniel. Then back to her. "You seem comfortable." The coldness in his voice chilled the entire atmosphere. Daniel frowned slightly. She was cold. "I wasn't speaking to you." Tension exploded instantly. Rachel stepped forward quickly. He was only helping. Min Jae looked directly at her. "And you enjoy his attention." The accusation stunned her. "What?" "You heard me." Something inside Rachel finally snapped. For months, she tolerated his mixed signals. His coldness. His possessiveness. His emotional distance. But now she was tired. "You don't get to act like this," she said quietly. Min Jae's eyes darkened. "Like what?" "Like you care." Silence. Heavy silence. Rachel's voice trembled slightly now. You push me away every time I get close to you. You treat me like I matter one moment and like I'm beneath you the next. Daniel looked uncomfortable immediately, but Rachel continued anyway. You don't get to suddenly act jealous because another person treats me kindly. The words hit Min Jae harder than bullets. Because they were true. And deep down, he hated himself for it. But instead of admitting that truth, he chose pride again. You're forgetting your position. The moment those words left his mouth, regret crashed into him instantly. Rachel looked devastated. Not angry, not shocked, just hurt. And somehow that hurt expression destroyed him internally. She removed Daniel's jacket quietly before handing it back, then looked directly at Min Jae for the first time in weeks. You're right, she whispered, and walked away. That night, Kang Min Jae sat alone inside his dark office drinking whiskey while soul lights flickered beyond the giant windows. But no amount of alcohol could silence the truth anymore. He was in love with her. Hopelessly, dangerously, completely. And he had absolutely no idea how to fix what he'd broken. Meanwhile, Rachel cried alone inside her room while questioning everything. Maybe Daniel was right. Maybe Min Jae would never change. Maybe loving someone emotionally unavailable only guaranteed heartbreak. But what she didn't know was that Min Jae had already started losing control in ways nobody around him had ever seen before. His temper grew worse. Meetings ended violently. Several executives became terrified of speaking around him. Because underneath all the Mafia pressure and betrayal investigations, his personal emotions were destroying him. Then everything became worse. One of Min Jae's trusted investigators entered his office late one night, carrying new information. We found unusual financial transfers connected to the warehouse attack. Min Jae looked up sharply. Who? The investigator hesitated, then placed photos on the desk. Daniel. Min Jae's expression turned deadly cold. What is this? Daniel Lee previously worked with Maid Holdings. Min Jae's jaw tightened instantly. Maid Holdings secretly financed one of his biggest rival organizations. Suddenly, every interaction between Daniel and Rachel looked suspicious. Too suspicious. The umbrella. The late-night conversations. The emotional closeness. And because Min Jae's life taught him betrayal always hides behind affection, paranoia consumed him immediately. The next morning, he confronted Daniel privately. The atmosphere inside the office felt suffocating. Explain your connection to Maid Holdings. Daniel looked confused initially. Then his expression hardened slightly. I used to consult for them years ago. You never asked. Min Jae stepped closer slowly. You've grown very interested in someone inside my home. Understanding flashed across Daniel's face instantly. This is about Rachel? It's about loyalty. Daniel sighed quietly. You really don't trust anyone, do you? I trust evidence. No, Daniel replied calmly. You trust control. The tension became dangerous. Then Daniel said something unexpected. She deserves better than emotional punishment every time someone gets close to you. Min Jae's eyes darkened violently. But Daniel continued anyway. You care about her. Everyone can see it except you. That conversation haunted Min Jae long after it ended. Because for the first time, someone had spoken the truth directly into his face. And he couldn't deny it anymore. Meanwhile, Rachel slowly started distancing herself emotionally from the mansion. Not physically, emotionally. She stopped waiting for Min Jae during late nights. Stopped worrying whenever he skipped meals. Stopped searching for hidden kindness beneath his coldness. And strangely, that distance terrified Min Jae more than enemies ever had. Because now he understood something horrifying. He might actually lose her. Not through violence. Not through betrayal. But through emotional exhaustion. One snowy evening, Min Jae returned home injured again after another brutal confrontation linked to the ongoing Mafia war. This time the damage looked serious. Doctors rushed through the mansion urgently while guards sealed entrances. Rachel heard everything from downstairs. And despite every emotional wound between them, she still ran toward him. When she entered his room, Min Jae sat shirtless on the bed while a doctor wrapped bandages around bruised ribs. His face looked pale from blood loss. The moment he saw her, something inside him weakened instantly. The doctor finished quickly before leaving the room quietly. Then silence remained between them. Heavy, emotional, dangerous. Rachel approached carefully. You should rest. Min Jae watched her silently, then finally asked the question haunting him for months. Why do you still care? Her eyes filled with tears immediately. Because she didn't know how to stop. No matter how much he hurt her. No matter how impossible loving him felt. Her heart still chose him. I hate this, she whispered shakily. Min Jae's chest tightened painfully. Hate what? How much you matter to me? Silence swallowed the room. Then finally, Kang Min Jae broke emotionally for the first time in years. I don't know how to love someone without destroying them. Those words revealed everything. His fear, his trauma, his emotional isolation. Rachel slowly sat beside him. And for the first time, Min Jae allowed himself to be vulnerable. She betrayed me once, he admitted quietly. The woman I loved before. Because of her, my brother died. Rachel's expression softened immediately. And after that, I became someone cold enough to survive. His voice sounded empty now. But then you arrived here. Tears filled Rachel's eyes. You made this house feel alive again. Min Jae looked at her like a man terrified of hope itself. And that scared me more than enemies ever could. The emotional wall between them finally cracked. Slowly, Rachel touched his face gently. You're not your past. And for the first time in years, Kang Min Jae cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just silent tears from a man exhausted by loneliness. But peace never lasts long in worlds built on violence. 3 days later, the true traitor finally revealed himself. Chairman Yu, one of Min Jae's oldest advisors. The man secretly orchestrating attacks against the Han Empire for years. And unfortunately, he knew Min Jae's greatest weakness now. Rachel, not through kidnapping, not through violence, but through destruction of reputation. Within hours, scandal exploded online. Private photos of Rachel entering Min Jae's office leaked publicly. Fake stories accused her of manipulating him for money. Reporters swarmed outside the mansion. Social media became vicious. Cruel comments spread everywhere. Gold digger, foreign opportunist, manipulative maid. Rachel became overwhelmed emotionally. I can't do this anymore, she cried. And finally, Kang Min Jae understood what his silence had cost her. Because he spent months hiding his feelings instead of protecting her openly. No more. That night, Seoul's most powerful elites gathered inside a luxury hotel for Han Group's annual corporate gala. Politicians, executives, celebrities, crime figures pretending to be businessmen. Everyone expected Min Jae to distance himself from scandal publicly. Instead, the ballroom fell silent when Kang Min Jae entered holding Rachel's hand openly. Shock spread instantly across the room. Cameras flashed everywhere, and Min Jae stopped directly in the center of the ballroom before speaking calmly. She is under my protection. Silence. Absolute silence. Then Min Jae continued. Anyone who disrespects her, disrespects me. The warning carried terrifying weight. Nobody challenged him. Nobody dared. But Rachel stared at him emotionally because after all this time, he finally chose her publicly. Meanwhile, Chairman Yu launched one final war against Min Jae's empire. Violence erupted across Seoul's underground world. Businesses burned. Loyal men disappeared. Financial attacks struck Han Holdings aggressively. Everything descended into chaos. But this time, Min Jae fought differently. Not like a man protecting power. Like a man protecting love. The final confrontation happened inside the same riverside warehouse where the first ambush occurred months earlier. Rain poured heavily outside while Chairman Yu stood surrounded by armed men. You became weak, Yu sneered. All because of that woman. Min Jae's expression remained calm. No. Slowly, he stepped forward. She's the reason I remembered how to be human. The fight that followed ended years of betrayal permanently. And in the end, Chairman Yu lost not because Min Jae inspired fear, but because loyal people willingly stood beside him. Something Chairman Yu never understood. Months later, peace slowly returned. The mansion changed completely. Laughter returned to the kitchen. Music occasionally drifted through hallways again. Even Min Jae smiled more often now. One evening, Rachel stood on the rooftop watching Seoul lights glow beneath the night sky when familiar footsteps approached behind her. Min Jae. He wrapped his coat gently around her shoulders. You still think about leaving sometimes? He asked quietly. Rachel smiled softly. Only when you annoy me. For once, Min Jae laughed genuinely. Then his expression softened. I spent my whole life believing love was weakness. Slowly, he pulled out a small velvet ring box. Rachel froze instantly. But loving you saved me from becoming someone I hated. Tears filled her eyes immediately. So stay with me, he whispered. And beneath Seoul's glowing skyline, the woman once treated like she didn't belong became the most important person in the life of Korea's most feared man. Because in the end, their story was never truly about mafia power, or wealth, or violence. It was about healing broken people who thought they were impossible to love. Min Jae learned vulnerability was not weakness. Rachel learned genuine love should never remain hidden in silence. And together, they finally gave each other something both of them had been missing for years. Home. If you made it this far, let us know where you're watching from and comment your favorite moment below, like this video, and subscribe to _threads for more emotional Mafia love stories.